Hey guys, what's going on? Blaine back for another Netflix review, and today I'm going to be talking about Beverly Hills Cop, Axel F. Beverly Hills Cop Axel F is the latest and long-awaited sequel to the Beverly Hills Cop franchise. It follows Detroit detective Axel Foley 30 years after his last adventure, in which he carries on his work as usual when he learns his daughter, a lawyer who lives in Beverly Hills, has been threatened by thugs telling her to stop pursuing a case. Things become more dire when Foley's longtime friend Billy Rosewood has been kidnapped by the thugs. Foley decides to go to Beverly Hills once more to save his friend, repair the strained relationship between him and his daughter, and solve the mystery behind these thugs once and for all. It's understandable why some may be nervous of seeing a sequel 3 decades in the making, as it may not live up to the hype, but for me this movie was a lot of fun to watch. While it doesn't match the quality of the original, it provides plenty of entertainment for both old and new fans alike, and stays true to the spirit of what makes these movies so enjoyable. Of course, the main reason to see this movie is Eddie Murphy's performance as Axel Foley, and he still does as good a job as he always has. He has the same wit and charisma that gets him both in and out of trouble in the right moments, and it's impressive to see him still holding his own when it comes to the action scenes. He is lacking a bit of energy this time around, but I mostly attribute that to him being in his 60s, and he's nowhere near as disappointing to watch here as he was in Beverly Hills Cop 3. Other than the lack of his trademark chuckle from previous movies, Murphy is still great at what he does, as an honest cop who causes trouble for the sake of doing right by others. There's a more dramatic element to his character this time around, in the form of the relationship he has with his daughter Jane, which is interesting, but I'm a bit mixed on. I do like that the daughter's presence adds more emotional stakes and a kind of structure to the story, but I don't think it's executed as well as it could have been. For one, Taylor Page's performance in the role of Jane just doesn't have much spark to it. She acts with the same expressionless face and flat tone of voice in pretty much every scene in the movie. She's not a bad character per se, as she does add much needed depth to Axel Foley as a character, but her lack of personality leaves a lot to be desired. As for the relationship itself, it tends to slow the pacing of the movie down in inopportune times. One scene will be lighthearted, and then the next it'll be depressing as the two spat with each other over their estrangement. Something about their dynamic just felt off to me, and while I appreciate their bond growing throughout the story, they still came off as a generic father-daughter duo. The rest of the characters in this movie are great, and consist of a variety of new faces and old favorites. Joseph Gordon-Levitt is excellent in his role as the younger buddy cop to tag along with the veteran Foley, and Kevin Bacon's role as the villain, while a bit cliché, is delightfully diabolical without being over the top or cheesy. However, it's the classic characters that bring the most joy for me. Seeing all the actors for Rosewood and Taggart reunite for one more adventure, even at their old age, is worth the price of admission alone. They even found a way to include Jeffrey and Serge into the story. It's awesome to see the series continue to maintain the sense of continuity, and none of the actors have lost a step when it comes to portraying their characters. It just feels like the gang's back together again in all the best ways. It has lots of callbacks to the original, like Rosewood being obsessed with guns, Taggart getting the shotgun from his car, and Lauren Balfi's soundtrack balancing perfectly between the Axel F motif and his own original work. This movie is a great example of one that provides a heap of nostalgia for the audience while being able to stand on its own merits. It stays true to the story formula of the series. The mystery behind the criminals intimidating Foley and his daughter is fun to see play out, as the two gather clues, engage in stakeouts, and of course get caught up in shenanigans along the way. I enjoyed seeing how Foley dealt with them, between his street smarts and daughter's natural intuition. However, while the series does have a fresh coat of paint with its modern setting, the underlying structure is pretty much the same as it's always been. Everything from the characters to the villain's plot to being back in Beverly Hills is exactly what you'd expect from other movies in the series, and the father-daughter relationship isn't really enough to elevate it. Because of this, I can see why this movie has gotten mixed reviews. It hasn't changed a whole lot over the years, so it can feel stale at times, although this can work in its favor. In an age where so many movies today lack teeth with their humor and action scenes are loaded with CGI, this feels like a trip down memory lane, not just with its characters, but also how it brings both comedy and action back to basics. This is easily the funniest movie I've seen on Netflix this year. Naturally, Foley has a lot of funny banter between himself and other characters, and still has a habit of pretending to be someone he's not, which causes a lot of issues as his lies escalate and become more ridiculous. It's always hilarious to see Foley's bubble grow bigger and bigger until it finally bursts. I'm also glad the movie mostly stays true to the R-rated formula that previous entries have followed. The sexual aspect is pretty much absent, and the language isn't quite as creative as it was in the past, so unfortunately it is toned down a bit, but it's still fun to hear Foley shoot his mouth off, and it still succeeds in portraying a more hard-boiled crime story on top of it all. In terms of comedy, there's two moments that stand out for me. The first being the house tour with Serge's friend Ashley, who really needs to become a recurring character if there's ever another sequel, and the second being a call-out to Foley's case in 1994, which is when the third movie came out. The way the characters in that scene just casually brush it off as not being Foley's finest hour shows the filmmakers were fully aware of that movie's negative reception. I was also surprised by how good the action turned out to be. It features plenty of car chases and shootouts, and with only the smallest amount of CGI necessary. When cars are crashing into each other, it looks like they're actually doing it, which is a great throwback to how action movies used to be made. There's only a few set pieces I can think of that use a lot of CGI, the biggest one being the helicopter chase, which I actually thought was the most entertaining scene in the movie, because of how simultaneously intense and funny it is. The movie does everything it can to take its audience on a wild ride, which is appreciated. Bottom line, it's a Beverly Hills Cop movie, one that is updated a little bit for the modern era, but still familiar when it's all said and done. It knows exactly what audience it's catering to and doesn't try to be anything more than what it is. And with so many old franchises that try and fail to reinvent the wheel, it's refreshing to see a throwback like this that focuses on just having a good time in the way it knows how to. Overall, Beverly Hills Cop Axel F is an exciting new entry for the franchise, with just enough new things for it to stay relevant while keeping its core essence intact. If you're a fan of the Beverly Hills Cop series in general, you'll definitely enjoy watching this. And if you're new to the series or like the idea of raunchy humor combined with a dark detective story, I think you'd enjoy checking it out too. Despite some things being odd or dated about its presentation, I'm glad to see not only another sequel in the series, but one that's so much fun to watch on account of its humor and action. I don't know if this will pave the way for future sequels, but if this is the last one, I can definitely say Axel F is a good note to go out on. What did you think about this movie? Was it a worthy entry for the series, or do you think it's outdated by today's standards? Let me know in the comments below. Anyways guys, that's going to wrap up my review of Beverly Hills Cop Axel F. Thanks for watching this video, I hope you enjoyed it, and as always stay tuned for the next part where next time I review the Argentinian romantic drama, Goyo. Bye bye!